Hello, dear friends. In the beginning of this episode, I will give a bit more details on the prophecies of the saintly nun Lambrini from Greece, and after that comes what for most will be probably more interesting. These are prophecies about the Ukraine war and the development of the wars during the end times afterwards. The first one is from the very famous and well respected for her amazing abilities, Lela Kakuli from Georgia. And the second one is from an elder of Mount Athos who prefers to keep a rather low profile. And at the end, a bit of new information from the Slavic gentleman on the sacred magic plants. So initially I found only these prophecies from Lambrini, and I'm sorry that they have to be scattered over a couple of episodes, but there is no systematic place where one finds all prophecies in their entirety, and sometimes I find pieces of the puzzle later on. So without further delay, these are the additional details. She said, life will be quite different than in the end times. The poverty will be unimaginable, worse than war times. People will have their cars just parked in their yards. They will not use them. Even those who have a job, which will be rare, they will have to pay half of it just for the petrol to get to the job. What will be left from the salary afterwards may not be always sufficient for food. Then during the conversation with this visitor, that was all 20-30 years ago, when she left this world, she said, and this barn that you have, there will be families who will be begging you to live there. The man answered in disbelief, I doubt, it's full of mice. I don't think anybody will want to live there. But she explained that people will be very happy if they have any roof above their head, because so many people will be coming from the islands, which will be in a mess, and from the capital, because in the capital they won't be able to grow and eat anything, while in the countryside at least there is some hope to harvest something from the land. The capital dwellers will simply flee. For example, the pensioners, they will be contacting their relatives in the countryside and begging them, please take me in your house, I will be giving you half of my pension. The financial reset will be very sudden and it will be announced basically on hours' notice. At that time, those who have some gold will be in good position. It will be so bad that people will have nothing to eat for days. And then they will start rolling out their program. They will say, you see, actually you're entitled to unconditional income. Yes, we can give you food. Just get the new passport. That will make you eligible for this free distribution program. And of course, most of the people will go for it. They will be simply too hungry. And the new passport will be nothing else but the mark of the beast. And God Himself will take care of those who refuse to accept this passport. Even when they eat only air, still, they will be far better off than the people who have accepted the passport. By the way, this eating only air, I see it as a clear reference to what in other prophecies is described as feeding directly from the ether. I have personally not yet experimented with this. The Slavic gentleman, he's experimenting lately, and he says that he tries to cultivate it himself, and kind of it works for a few days, and few days it doesn't. And he said that he spent time researching how people who actually do it have managed to do so. Like there are people who report fasting for 30-40 days, like Alexander Paramonov. He said he did 40 or even more days of complete fasting, only juice. Other people go completely without juice even for many days, even weeks. And it seems this is either a capability you have or you don't. It's not some sort of long training that you get accustomed to it. In more understandable language, at least for me, this is a mystic power which you either have or you don't. In Christianity, they call it one of the gifts from Lord. So most likely, when the Great Hunger starts, God will bless all His people all of a sudden with this power. Lambrini, like the other prophets, used to say as well that this will not be the only trick by which they will be forcing the people into accepting the passports. And decades ago, when she foretold this sudden financial meltdown, people were kind of skeptical because at that time they were enthusiastic about accepting the new so-called stable currency called the euro, and they were even correcting her. You see, before we were using these dirhams, and because all the countries had their separate currencies, these sudden fluctuations were possible in different lands. But now, when we eliminate this unnecessary multitude of currencies, the market will be more stable. But she explained to them that the euro is actually unblessed by the Lord currency, specifically introduced to carry out their devious plan. And after the initial period of prosperity, just to introduce it everywhere and make it widely accepted, make it the norm, after that, they will go with the rest of the plan and organize the financial meltdown to make the people basically penniless. She advised the people not to throw away their old belongings because one day they will have nothing, and if they just store them now somewhere, one day they will find them and remember the old times, and even looking at their old things they will say, wow, what kind of luxury things we have. That poor they will be in the future during the end times. And on the top, the government tyranny will reach ridiculous levels. They will be stopping cars on the road, and then the policeman will just press one button and the entire resume, the entire biography of the person will appear on the screen. So they will read everything, look for trouble, or just say, oh, you have some sort of debt, and then follow the person even to their home and confiscate it on the spot. Now, how about the outcome of the current war in Ukraine? This war was mentioned in a couple of prophecies, which I encountered previously, but somehow its outcome was kind of implied in favor of Russia, but not clearly stated. So then I started digging and found additional prophecies, which clearly mention the waves of the Ukraine wars. But the outcome seems contradictory. According to the first one, by the Georgian seer Lelakakuli, at the end Russia will lose the war, but I'm not sure which end she means. And according to the second one, it is clearly said that it will win. Now, Lelakakuli is very famous for her gift of prophecy. She definitely sees things. And what is happening now, she foretold about it some 10 years ago, not after it started. But because she's Georgian, and that's a country in the Caucasus region of Asia, which is not particularly favorably disposed to Russia currently, she might be describing the story from kind of negative angle. I'm not sure. Possibly both prophecies are true. But anyhow, I will present both of them to you. I don't know if they really contradict each other, but both kind of describe things quite accurately, and they seem to be from, in general, good source. So we start with Lelakakuli, and it seems although the source used was published 10 years ago, probably they were spoken, they came out of her much earlier when Ukraine was still part of Russia, because at that time she was foretelling that Ukraine will become one day an independent country. It will not be under Russia, not under Europe, not under anybody. So that part has come true. And then she says Putin will come up with this bloody plan to reconquer the ex-Russian republics, which according to her at the end will fail. And maybe she's right about that, because according to all prophecies, Russia will be getting only smaller and smaller initially. So that part is in unison with everything else. Then she says that eventually Ukraine will be officially accepted in the West. I don't know if it is the European Union or NATO. It seems to be EU, and according to her, even a few other republics will eventually join. And all these ex-Russian republics in the Caucasian region, they will unite, according to her, and they will declare war on Russia. At that time, there will be too many frontiers to manage, and the situation will go out of control for Putin. The Islamic armies will reach all the way to Moscow and even kill Putin himself. There will be lots of blood spilled in Moscow itself. And all this so far seems to be in full agreement with all other prophecies. We heard before that they will be shooting long-range missiles from Krakow in the previous episodes. Also, the source of Gaiduchok, I think I have mentioned that in previous videos, which I think is absolutely reliable. He also spoke about the number of wars between Russia and its ex-republics. He just listed all those wars. However, Vadim Chernobov at that time was not interested much in the outcome, because that was way back in time. It was still Soviet Union, and all these stories which he was telling seemed quite incredible. So Leila Kakoulis said that in the beginning, when the West begins helping Ukraine, they will send such a ridiculous, outdated stuff that Russia will ridicule them and make them look like pathetic losers. Which is happening now. I don't know how much access do you have to the Russian media, but they really post funny, hilarious videos of the Western tanks unable to, cope with the terrain, and the way they perform is as if they have never been tested in actual combat. And lots of Ukrainians died because they were trapped in such poor technology. The overall impression is that the West is until now using Ukraine as something like a defective weapons dump. It's exactly this detail which she described and which is now happening that made me include her predictions in this episode, because this is really, really on the point, and it is at least 10 years old, if not much more. But then she continued, that will be only in the beginning, and later on the West will pull out its high quality weapons, and then most likely we will see what has been mentioned in a number of other prophecies, that in the beginning this terrible situation will be in Ukraine, and after that it will come over to Russia as well. And according to Leila Kakoulis, eventually Ukraine will win the war started by Russia and will even take back the region of Crimea. So only this last piece of information doesn't go along with all the other prophecies, but the way this can be true, and the other prophecies can be true as well, is that eventually later on, when Russia loses everything and turns into a small country, yes, then it will lose not only Crimea but most of its own territories as well. So in that way, the Leila and the next prophecy will not contradict each other. The next prophecy belongs to a non-famous monk, Giorgi, from Mount Athos, which was first published some 7-8 years ago. His description of the wars during the end times is so detailed that I'm presenting it here, because when things start happening, if they're the way described, then you will know the next step. So according to Giorgi, there will be 7 wars during the end times. It will not be war all the time. There will be times of peace, short periods of peace in between them. The people who will live in the regions of bloodshed and destruction will, at that time when it all starts, they will begin to pray to the Lord for mercy, but there will be no answer. And the people who live in the regions which are not yet affected by the war, instead of learning a lesson by looking at the horrors, they will do the opposite. They will be looking for excuses and igniting again all their disputes just to drag themselves into the war as well. In that way, the war will eventually engulf and destroy the entire earth. The beginning, the fire will be ignited during the first war with Georgia. By the way, it seems these prophecies were recorded before this Russo-Georgian war started even. And there will be a second war in Georgia. This time the Georgians will go against Russia, but in answer, Russia will completely destroy that country. I think something like this was described in other prophecies previously as well. And while the Russian forces are heavily engaged on the Georgian frontier, at that time the Ukrainians, instigated and helped by America, will start fierce attacks on Russia. Turkey will allow America to use its airspace and water territories to position itself near Russia, and that will be the pivotal turning point. Not only it will be disastrous after that for Turkey, but the apocalyptic events will start developing very fast. Then the Russian attacks will really begin. On the way, it will completely defeat Ukraine. Or to be more precise, monk Giorgi said, the Ukrainian people, as the army marches and advances, they will simply refuse to fight them. Instead, they will organize welcoming celebrations as the soldiers pass through. This is not surprising, the way Ukrainians are getting fed up with their leadership. By the way, this was described in the same way in the Nino prophecies. So the Russian forces will reach and obstruct it all the way to the Black Sea, where there will be the first direct engagement with the US military. And at that time, the Kurdish population of Turkey will start rioting and a dictatorship will be established in the country. Those who have listened carefully to the previous episodes will make already many connections with those prophecies. I would say this is the third episode in this series about the Third World War. In that time period, the financial system of Europe will start crumbling. Payments will stop going through. Because of that, there will be civil wars in Europe. Europeans will not respond when they receive letters to get drafted in the army. They will not go. And then in the year after that, at the same time of the year, America and Israel will attack Iran. Although Greece itself will be blessed with protection, there will be war all around. Albania, Croatia, Bosnia and America against Serbia and Russia. In few weeks, the Greek government will collapse and people will go to vote. This is a Greek monk, so naturally he is giving a bit more detail about Greece. Russia will sweep clean large areas of Turkey as it invades it with the speed of a lightning, so that NATO has no time to react. It will be the first time Russia will show off with this new super weapon they have. By the way, this was mentioned in some other prophecies, which I think I have not included yet in previous episodes. I mean this super weapon itself. Before finishing off Turkey completely, Russia would have driven away the American forces from Ukraine, Armenia, Georgia and Azerbaijan. Simultaneously with that, Russia will start its invasion on Western Europe first, in Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden and Finland. Although theoretically these countries would claim that they are neutral in this conflict, the Russian invasion will be a result of the fact that they would have delivered their territory for America to make the first hit. Before that, Really, a lot will be destroyed in Scandinavia. The images will be disturbing for the entire world. After that, the Russian forces will go to Poland, Czech lands, Slovakia, Romania, and Moldova. The locals in these countries will rise on civil war, bringing down the rotten, corrupt current governments, and they will make alliance with Russia. The Romanians, the Serbians, they will do that as well, but Bulgarians will not do it. After that, the Russian forces will head south to help their allies, the Arabs, and Iran in particular, which at that time will be at war with US. Then the Americans would have under control all the coastal areas of Iran, but they would not have managed to secure the inner lands, as the local people would put up a very brave fight. The Russian army will free the entire Persia, and after that they will take control of Iraq, Syria, Jordan and Lebanon, Kuwait, and at the end they will reach to Israel. And at that point, Israel together with USA, they will try to respond with serious nuking. However, that will be intercepted by the Russian defense, and this interception and the nukes, they will cause electricity and communications blackout worldwide. After that, the Russians will take control over Egypt and the Suez Canal. They will pass through Greece, but there will be no damages as they will go very fast. The Russian army will be able to travel great distances in almost no time using new types of flying machines. And then they will return to the Balkans for one more victory and help Serbia, which at that time would be under attack by NATO and the Catholic and Muslim states of Europe. By the way, the mother of Otrok Vyacheslav Valentina Atanasievna, she was mentioning something similar. And it will be only the biggest betrayal in history which will put an end to the victorious march of the Russian forces. Their so-called allies, the Chinese, they will attack them with a knife in the back. They will invade Siberia while allowing and inviting the enemies at the same time to stab Russia from all other sides. These shameless traitors, not only they will not send their army to help Russia, but they will dare to send this very same army against the Greek army, which led by the god-appointed King Johann will take part in the Battle of Armageddon. The traitors will be completely defeated by the angelic forces. Now, here for the first time, I read the name of the king. It says here King Yuan. I guess the Western equivalent of the name is Johann. I'm not sure if this will be the god-appointed king of Greece, because there was mention in some prophecies that in the future Greece will have its king. Of course, all the kingdoms on the New Earth will have their kings. But I'm not sure if this will be the name of the king of Greece or the king of the Slavic people, the Russian king, around whom the godly people will gather. The Greek army could be maximum 100 to 200,000 people against the 20 million Chinese army. This is obviously not a match. That's why the Chinese army will be destroyed by heavenly fire brought by the angels. After the defeat of the Chinese, King Yuan will continue fighting in Asia and South Africa. When the Western army makes its way to the east, I'm not sure if this is in general or it happens at this point of time in the narration, but anyhow, I continue just giving you the gist of what I'm reading in the original. First, they will settle in Albania. However, the roads would be destroyed, it will be too difficult for them, and then they will decide to first land in Greece and then make their way on land. And Greece will be in general a neutral country, will not take part in any wars. And exactly for that reason, when the Western forces move through it, they will plunder rape and kill, just out of sheer envy, because their lands would be destroyed and their relatives would be dead, but Greece would be in good condition still. When they start coming near, everybody who wants to be saved should go to the forest and the mountains. At the end, this army, this gang of plunderers, will meet its end at the gates of Istanbul. And meanwhile, somebody asked the monk about the fate of America. He said that some 10% will survive from the current population. So somebody asked, why is it that the Russians always attack? They seem to be all over and taking under control all kinds of lands over continents. What is going on? And the monk replied that actually all the wars, all the conquests that the Russians would start would be because before that their enemies would create such situations that would oblige them to attack in order to actually defend themselves. And the enemies, they are doing that because they know the laws of karma, and they know that at least when the judgment comes, at least they will not have the full blame for what they have effectively instigated. The crisis of the end times will come in waves. The first wave already came, but now most people kind of think that everything is back in control. However, the second wave will be way more brutal, and then people will start even suiciding themselves in mass in their homes, at their workplaces. Many will turn into plunderers. The economy as we know it will no longer exist. The tyrants will announce unbelievable taxes, even for cats, dogs, and chicken at your home. The presidents and the people of power will hold empty speeches and meetings, assuring the people that they are running like crazy all day trying to solve the problems, while at the same time they will be making further and further arrangements to impoverish the people and rob them completely of everything, leave them completely hungry. At the same time, the invisible for the masses dark masters will be assuring them that everything is under control, everything is going according to plan. When all this is over, you will be still the president forever. Some of these presidents, most of them, will remain with the dark forces because of the promises of indulgence according to the vices they have. In some of them, when things get difficult, honor will prevail, and while saying yes to the dark masters, they will start doing good things for their people. They will be murdered, and in the news you will read that they have committed suicide. Well, this is the end of the gist of the Giorgi prophecies, monk Giorgi. All I could say is political tension is obviously escalating. If the events start going the way just described, and one still doesn't have enough faith in the prophecies to reject the cursed passport, shame on such a person. So, in various prophecies, we heard about different types of marks. There will be the mark of the beast, but also the mark of the Lord. And also the Slavic gentleman he mentioned, again, this is unconfirmed source, that when they start stamping the people, those who refuse, they will be also stamped on the forehead, not with the mark of the beast, but with the mark of disobedience. Of course, for the safety of other people around, so that they know that these people are not vaccinated, they don't care about saving the planet from CO2, and a bunch of hideous slander. So I asked him, so how will they stamp these people on the forehead? Will they hunt them in the forest or what? He replied that those who stay in the cities until the end, but still do not want to accept the mark, the passport, they will be hunted down by force like animals. They will receive this sign, according to him, on their forehead, and they will be used for dirty, unattractive jobs and treated like disgusting outcasts by the rest. The people who will be hunted down physically are those who by no means wish to accept the mark, the passport, but yet on the other side, they are not willing to give up the comforts of modern life. They will wait until it is too late, following the logic of let's see how things are going and a viewer question from Brazil. Why did I say that things might have been delayed for 20 years? It is an overall impression which I got after browsing hundreds of prophecies. For example, many confirmed Christian sources mention times, and they were all towards the shift of the millennium, year 2000. And at a couple of places there were hints that there is yet another possible path with a delay of whatever 10, 20, 30 years. Also, many confirmed sources say that actually things are delayed. They should have happened earlier, just so the people have more chance to learn and come to their senses, which they don't seem to be doing much. But anyhow, this thing about the delay which we are experiencing in the current kalpa, because it seems things have been repeating themselves. So the scheduled time was probably around the shift of the millennium, but because not everything is set in stone, most likely we took another path with a delay of 20, 30 years, and they started their intense onslaughts on humanity with the fix in year 2020, and according to their own published plans, they are planning to conquer the world by 2030. According to the Slavic gentlemen, also they have been delaying their devious scheme because the crystals were not working as expected. They couldn't activate them properly. Maybe they're really vital for their preposterous scam to do black magic using technology, influencing the thoughts of the people with false inner voices, creating visuals and convincing the people through the inner whispering that the donkey is actually Christ or Buddha or Muhammad, whatever. Serge Monast exposed them long ago that they have this program to create visuals and false inner voices with language and symbols appropriate for the different regions of the world according to the lifestyle and belief of the people, to imitate religious figures so that the people will start worshipping the donkey. And then Serge Monast all of a sudden died. So in terms of practical prepping, at least in Europe, the price of wheat this year is quite low. Indeed, here in this area it is 20 cents per kilo. That means for €200 one can buy 1000 kilo, and if that is properly packed and the person can remain at his property and hide it well, that will save one from starvation for the entire tribulation. And again, this is the prepping method I would advise instead of relying on gardening, which could be difficult or impossible once the times get rough. And it was interesting that I was talking to somebody about this idea about 1000 kilos wheat, and immediately this person, such a big smile, his face started glowing. He started radiating light and said, "Oh, yes, yes, that will solve all the problems of the tribulation." Turned out, he thought I meant wheat with D at the end, 1,000 kilos of it. And now, curious information received by the Slavic gentleman, again without any guarantee that this is confirmed in any way, unlike many of the prophecies in this series, but it is kind of interesting. According to what has been inspired into his heart by the Creator in his own words, like the Christ figure, he calls him Yeshua. He is a soul who has a prominent role in our creation. He calls it a galaxy, maybe he calls it our galaxy. According to some other people's understanding, it could be our universe, because both words, galaxy and universe, are in essence simply a vocabulary taken from the modern astrophysics, which is mostly fantasy. But then even those who do not believe in it use such words for the lack of any other vocabulary, and they may attribute different meanings to galaxies and universes. That's why I'm saying something like that. So, anyhow, the Christ figure has a special role in creating our reality bubble, and there are many other creators who manifest from their consciousness other galaxies, other universes. But they can be present in the creations of others to learn from them and to witness and to gather knowledge. And in our creation, they do so in the form of plants. And according to him, there are 58 such magical plants present on Earth. Most of them in the Amazon jungle, where the local population is not extremely sophisticated, so they can kind of thrive more undisturbed by the stupid civilization advertising itself as advanced. When people ingest or somehow get in contact with these sacred plants, or a combination of them, they actually get in touch with the soul of those other creators. And since they have been entrusted with such a job, obviously these are very highly advanced souls, and no wonder one becomes wiser very fast when one gets in contact, at least in most cases. In other cases, like for example, mean local tribes in the Amazon, they use, for example, ayahuasca for black magic. She doesn't mind being used like that. She just lets them drown faster in the reality they want to create. And by the way, that's what I have heard from the local shamans. That's how they see the things as well. That the evil people who become shamans, they become evil and harmful and sink into pathetic life much faster than ordinary evil people, because obviously they start harming others, and the weight of all these sins drags them down faster. Also, in the case of ayahuasca, the Slavic gentleman said, time flows much faster here. Entire years and events, they are like kind of blinks for her, sparks, small sparks of time. The specific method for ingesting the sacred plant, or a combination of them, or the way to cook it, or the recipe for making a magic brew of a combination of several such magic plants, this is the secret dial code for connecting to various creators. And these secret recipes are only communicated by the guardians to the humans who deserve it, or, according to another version, by the fallen angels who give bad advices to some people who do not deserve it. And the magical ayahuasca brew is a typical example of this, because the two main plants, at least the main ones of which it consists, they don't really grow in the same area, so it's hard to believe that somebody figured out the recipe by a random trial and error method. And also, according to the old knowledge in those regions, this is not something somebody bumped into. This was communicated to the people by the spirits, these recipes. Yet on the other hand, other guest creators, they have a very simple dial code, just ingest a single plant. And that can be discovered by chance, even by simple tribal people. This is something which will change in the next cycle of creation. It's kind of a glitch in the current system. In future, he said, there will be only complex dial access codes involving two or more plants and more difficult to find out the recipe.